Here are the two pieces straight out of the printer. The cover, I used a smooth pattern plate for this. So we're going to clean these up. Good. So now we have the two clean parts and we'll test fit them. It looks pretty good. So let's bring in the rest of the bits. All right. I'm going to set the cover aside and we'll look at what we're putting in here. We have the Rack Wireless 19003 board with the 4631 CPU in there. GPS, this is the 12600, I think, GPS, and then one of the sensors. We've got some inserts. Various screws, the antenna stuff, and then the insert tip for the soldering iron. So let's stick these guys on. We're going to add these to the rack board. Line up the connector. I know this is hard to watch. And line up this connector. And then we'll get these little screws. These are the screws that come with the rack hardware. These are the super tiny ones. Okay, that board is assembled, and now we are going to go grab the soldering iron and put the inserts in. So let's turn it on. I have it set to its lowest setting. It's got a little dial on there. So we'll let that heat up and we will get our inserts in place. The tip that's in there now is for these little screw inserts. Yeah, that's awesome. turn this off and let it cool down because we need to switch the tips for the 1/4 20 insert at the bottom. Okay, we got the other tip in the soldering iron. I don't have a 1/4 20 tip, so I'm just using an M5. Seems to work okay. And that doesn't fit under there, so I kind of have to do it this way. That bigger insert takes more heat, so it will stay hot longer. Fair warning. Okay, there's one thing we need to clean up on these inserts, and that's this one. If the shoulder of the heat insert tip touches the plastic, it creates a little lip, and that can impede the cover as it slides on. So we want to take our scraper and make that as flat as possible. And you can see it's scraping up a little bit of the plastic that kind of oozed up. All right, so that's done. And now we can install the hardware. I just drop this into place, make sure it lines up with the holes, and we get the screws. These are the screws that come with the rack hardware, the bigger ones. I'm just putting them in loosely at first to make sure they all line up. And then I'll tighten them. Okay, let's do the antenna. Here's the antenna mount. This is new to me, antenna mounts that have a little mini antenna mount in them. Maybe that's always been like that. So we want to make sure that that's tight, and then thread that up inside, align the hex with the hex indent in the case. And then I don't know what the order, how you're supposed to put these on, so I'm just gonna guess. I know the nut goes on last, but the rest of this I have no idea. And then we get I'm using a 5/16 inch nut driver. There's that. Let's see, the LoRa antenna, or the SMA is in there. Okay, let's get our Bluetooth antenna. Take off that thing. You don't have to take off you don't have to use the adhesive if you don't want to. In fact, I think it's easier if you leave that backing on. That kind of snugs down in there. And then the GPS antenna. So I'm going to remove that tag. The GPS antenna goes in here, just want to be sure that the little cable goes in to the notch here. There's different versions of this GPS antenna that come with the rack boards. This one's a little bit smaller, but the older, bigger ones, or I guess fatter, they fit in here too. All right, now I'm gonna connect all these guys. Uh-oh. So, yeah. Don't forget to plug in your GPS antenna before you put your board in. Boink. But first, plug in the GPS antenna. Okay. That. It's the LoRa antenna. And then Bluetooth. Yeah. And then we smoosh all the wires into the case. All right, let's put our antenna on. And then our battery. And this case was made specifically for this battery. It's a 95 51 78. And I did have to switch the polarity on the connector. So 100% double, triple check that. There's no standard. So you have to be responsible for that. There's a little notch in the case here for the wire to pass through, and we're going to plug this in, and it should power up. Yeah, there it goes. So we'll smoosh the wires, slide the case on. And then get the one screw that keeps it locked. There it is. It's complete and ready to flash. So in addition to the node we just built, I thought I'd show you some of the other materials I've printed. Here's a bamboo PETG translucent in orange. And I thought the translucent ones would be pretty cool, but you see enough of the electronics through the cover to make it look maybe a little scary to some people. Here's bamboo PETG translucent clear with a prismatic, built on a prismatic surface. This is bamboo PETG translucent gray with the, and this is just built on the textured PEI bed. And this is Overture PETG silver. Ace Additive, some cheap PETG that I got, and then the bamboo PETG cover. And we have Overture PETG in grass green with a kind of a gray translucent cover. The node that we built was Sunlu PLA Plus, both the cover and the tray. And I don't have any of the other PLA covers, but they all work. They're all modular. The PLA covers will work on the PETG tray and vice versa. So you can mix and match. I'm also uploading a version of the case for the 19007 baseboard. And this is an example here. I'll open it up. You can see, I mentioned earlier, you can see enough of the electronics inside that, yeah, I don't know, I think it's cool. Other people might have questions. Using some post-it notes to take up some extra space. This case uses a 1156-59 battery. See how it compares in size there. They're both the same thickness.